Welcome to the 20th episode of Anycast. This is my podcast on YouTube where we talk about anything that's going on, though primarily sports, and there is plenty of sports to get to. Quick update on the election because I know it's been a week since Biden was proclaimed the winner. The final states have been tallied, and when you know it, it's a landslide. At least we want to say it that way because Biden won with the exact same number of electoral votes that Trump won when he proclaimed his win in 2016, a landslide. So I guess you could say this was a landslide for Joe Biden. Obviously, we got to go through all this legal stuff and court stuff with Trump, but eventually things are going to work out. Biden is your president of the United States. Just wanted to bring that up. Unfortunately, there are plenty of Trump supporters that do not believe that Trump has lost yet, as evidenced by the protesting that went on yesterday and with barely any masks. Not that many masks to be worn. Again, this is the problem. Because as you probably have seen in the news now that things have resolved with the presidency, we have turned our attention back to the pandemic, which has gotten worse. We have had the last 2 weeks now 100,000 or more cases a day. That's horrific. And you know what that means. When the cases are going up, the hospitalizations are going up, the deaths are going to go up. It's out of control. It's turning into a zoo. And unfortunately, Trump, by not conceding the election, has not made the transition smooth, has not helped Biden and his staff out as far as what to do to handle the pandemic. And so as a result, people are just like, the heck with it. And I think that's a horrible way to go about it. We can help the cause, even if Trump doesn't want to at this point. And quite frankly, he's done nothing to help the pandemic out. So I'm not sure how much help he can be. I'm hoping that he can concede at some point. But I'm also realistic, and I just don't see that happening. So again, this is why I stress this after every podcast episode. Wear a mask. Do your part. Try to keep your social distancing if you can, but wear a mask, please. It can help. We just need to do our part, and eventually we're going to get through this. It's going to be a struggle, especially with it now being winter time. People are going to be cooped in, and that's where I think we could be in a little bit of trouble. But we just got to get through this, and we'll be fine. Now, let's do some diversion and talk about the sports, because there are plenty to talk about. For starters, how about my driver Chase Elliott winning the NASCAR Cup Series title? Oh yeah, nobody could have seen that one coming. He won the race at Phoenix on Sunday and thus won himself the title. And so, congratulations to Chase Elliott. You are the latest Hendrick driver to reign as champion. And on Jimmy Johnson's last race, no less, which, by the way, he did finish in 5th. And he had a great moment with Chase Elliott when they did a nice little fist bump when they got together at the end of the race. Definitely a passing of the torch. And I think the future of Hendrick is in great shape. You got Bowman, who's doing well. Byron had a fairly good season. You're going to get Kyle Larson, and obviously you have the reigning champion now in Chase Elliott. And they're all in their prime and very, very, very young, which makes me feel like an old geezer because I'm only 27 years old. Just saying. But congratulations nonetheless, and congratulations to the other finalists, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano. You put up a heck of a fight. Denny Hamlin had a great season. Unfortunately, came up short again. But I wish him the best of luck in his new role along with his current role, because now he's going to be a part owner for the 2311 racing team while still driving the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. That'll be an exciting transition for Hamlin for sure. We've also got the Masters. I know what you're thinking. Is it April? No, it's because of the pandemic. It pushed the Masters to this weekend. We're going into the final round this morning, and Dustin Johnson is in command. The world's number one golfer absolutely lit it up yesterday on moving day. And Tiger Woods, the defending champ, while he is going to make the weekend and will probably, hopefully do well in the final round, will not be a factor in defending his title, unfortunately. But he will be sticking around to hand the green jacket over to whoever does win. Right now, it looks like it's going to be Dustin Johnson, but you never know. Crazy things have happened in the Masters. just go back to last year as living proof. Also had some college football going on. There were some games that got postponed. 3 of the 5 top 5 teams either had their games postponed or canceled as a result of the pandemic. Clemson was the only one that did not play because of that. They didn't play because they had their scheduled bye week. So who did that left as the only top 5 team in action this week? Notre Dame, who took care of business against BC. Unfortunately, they had to do it on Red Bandana Day. And for those who don't know, Boston College every year has one home game dedicated to a man named Wells. If you haven't heard the story yet, I highly recommend you go research it, look it up, whatever you want to do, but read about it. Because it's a great, great tribute to this man who risked his life on 9/11 to help others out. And so as a fitting tribute, he always wore red bandanas, so you know that was him. That's why Boston College, and he was also an alum of that school. That's why every year Boston College has a red bandana game. Unfortunately, Notre Dame ruined it by beating BC. I don't think they should be number 1. And I hate how people think, oh, well, should Notre Dame be number 1 because they followed up their win over number 1 Clemson by winning on the road against a pretty good BC team? No. You should not be punishing Bama for something that was beyond their control. Their game with LSU got postponed because LSU has an outbreak. So, what, you're going to punish them by jumping Notre Dame to number 1? Besides, I still don't value their win as highly over Clemson because Clemson did not have all their key pieces together. Call me when they beat somebody legit like a Bama, like a fully healthy Clemson squad, like an Ohio State, and then we will see. Until then, I don't see them moving up. I do see one little itty-bitty change in the rankings, and that's Wisconsin after they beat the crap out of Michigan at the Big House. My concern was you got a rusty Wisconsin squad against a desperate Michigan squad. I didn't know how this game was going to unfold. Well, we learned something about this one. Wisconsin looks like a legitimate threat to win the Big Ten if they can get their remaining games in. And Michigan is in big-time trouble. They're a train wreck. They're a disaster. And I think Harbaugh has seen his last year at Michigan. He is not coming back next year because there's no way that this is going to work out for Michigan. 1-3 is unacceptable for that school with the high expectations that they have year in and year out. And so I think Michigan is in big-time trouble, and then they're going to be looking for a new coach this winter. But back to Wisconsin. Absolutely dominating win. The discipline was amazing. They did not turn the ball over. They only had one penalty the whole game. And they definitely look like a team that can challenge Ohio State for the Big Ten title. So I think they're going to flip-flop with a 2-loss Georgia team who also didn't play this week as a result of my alma mater having a little bit of an outbreak. That would be Mizzou. So, yeah, I think that's the only change you're going to see in the top 18 in the rankings. SMU losing, and I believe they were the only team that was ranked that lost this weekend that did play. They're going to drop. Teams right behind them are going to take advantage of that. I think those are the only changes you're going to really see in the top 25 this week. I feel bad, though, going back to Wisconsin, about Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fallon. They're the best college football team you can think of. You can make an argument for Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt because they're equally as talented, but they're really, really good. And it seems like every week they've gotten a blowout for the Saturday Night Football game, which, as you know, means people are going to flip off the TV, and thus ESPN's ratings continue to be horrendous on that level because they are going to want to watch a competitive game. They do not want to watch a blowout. So, what do they do this time around for Saturday Night Football? The Bedlam game. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are they going to a Big 12 game? Well, first of all, Fox, who also does Big 10 games, already staked claims to the Ohio State-Indiana game, as evidenced by the fact that Big Noon Kickoff, their version of Game Day, is going live to Columbus. So, Game Day is left with having to go to Bedlam. Secondly, the Big 12, I get it. We haven't talked about the Big 12 for like the last few weeks since, Oklahoma State lost. So, yeah, you're wondering what the heck is going to happen there. I think it's going to be a competitive game, or at least I'm crossing my fingers on that, because for crying out loud, Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler deserve a nail biter. I don't get, and if you watch his Instagram page on Chris Fowler's Instagram page, he does a recap, or he did a recap on his Instagram page. He didn't care if it's 51-48 or 10-7 game. They just want a competitive game, and so far they have not gotten it. So we'll see what happens there. Oregon was their game last week. They followed up their win over Stanford with a, I guess, kind of impressive win on the road against Washington State. But again, I don't really think Oregon's going to move that up high up in the rankings. Again, only playing 2 games. Wisconsin has only played 2 games. But let's go back to the Big Ten for a second. Because if you remember 2007, it was a topsy-turvy year where we had nothing but upsets, up and down and left and right and all over the place. In the Big Ten, you've got Ohio State in the mix. Okay, that seems pretty normal. Wisconsin's in the hunt. That's pretty normal. Would you have ever thought that Indiana and Northwestern would be the only other 2 unbeatens at this point? I don't think anybody could have seen this one coming. We knew there was going to be a big game at the Horseshoe next week. Or we knew that there was going to be a big game at the Horseshoe, period. Who would have thought it would have been next week against Indiana in a top 10 battle? I mean, this is just absolutely... Indiana has been the most incredible story in college football this season. Here's a team that has been a perennial bottom feeder in the Big Ten for years. And here they sit undefeated. They look really, really good, by the way. They pulled out an unbelievable win over Penn State in their opener. They have followed that up with convincing wins over Rutgers, Michigan, and Michigan State. Now, granted, Michigan and Michigan State are on a down year, and Rutgers is Rutgers. But still, Indiana has looked really, really impressive, and I can't wait to see them in action against the Buckeyes. I think Ohio State's going to have their hands full in the Horseshoe against this Hoosier team that is trying to prove that it is not just a basketball school. It is a football school, and this team needs to be recognized as a dark horse in the college football playoff picture, especially if they can go into the Horseshoe and stun the Buckeyes. Tall task, but you never know. This year has been so crazy that I'm willing to believe in anything. The other big game in the Big Ten is Wisconsin and Northwestern. That's for Big Ten West supremacy, and again, who could have predicted that at the beginning of the season? Northwestern is undefeated. They have looked pretty darn impressive as well. And so I think the Big Ten definitely is flipped upside down. Now, with those surprises, there are surprises on the other end. I mentioned Michigan, they're 1-3. This is their worst start since the pre-Bo Schembechler days back in 1967. I was like 3 decades away from being born at that point, basically. Wasn't even, not even close to being born by then. That should tell you how long it's been. And Penn State, who at the beginning of the season was a preseason top 10, and everybody thought that they were Ohio State's biggest threat in the Big Ten, is winless. 0-4 for the first time since 2001. Only the second time ever that they've started 0-4. You want to know who the coach was for the only other 0-4 start? The legendary Joe Paterno, before he rallied his team to 5-6 that year. This has been a train wreck disaster for Penn State. And I'm sorry. I think they're going to be lucky to even get one win. I don't think they're going to. I think they're in big time trouble. If there's one positive that came out of that game against Nebraska, is that they at least have a QB that can move their offense. Clifford struggled again. They had to bring in another QB. He looked pretty darn good, and they almost came back against Nebraska, who got off the schneid themselves after an 0-2 start. But we shall see. In the NFL, well, Packers, Saints, and Seahawks and Buccaneers look like your 4 best teams in the NFC right now, as we're starting to see a little bit of separation. I think the next tier level, you got the Rams and the Cardinals. They both look pretty good, but everybody in that conference has a weakness, which is what's going to make this conference so great. Anybody can beat anybody on any given Sunday, but I'm not counting the NFC East because they're in a freaking division of their own where they all suck, and none of them is going to stack up to any of the top teams in the NFC. But Green Bay is definitely going to be a threat. I'm not sure if they're going to impress that many people today when they host the Jaguars at home. Seattle has a big one with the Rams. That's a huge one for the NFC. Cardinals are at home trying to rebound against the Bills, who have become one of the dark horses in the AFC. Buffalo, with their big-time win over the Seahawks last week, sent a message that, hey, we can do well in the AFC too. Colts on Thursday night took care of the Titans. That's a huge one in the AFC South because I think both those teams have a really good chance of doing some damage in the AFC. But, of course, everyone's looking up at the Chiefs. I know the Steelers are undefeated, and if you haven't watched Kimberly Martin's parting shot, go to her Twitter page. Video's there. It's amazing what Tomlin has been able to do with this Steelers squad. Remember, he's had to deal with all these egos and all these QB situations when Ben got hurt last year. And yet, this is the 14th consecutive year that the Steelers are going to have a non-losing season with Tomlin. I mean, that's just unbelievable. Pittsburgh is the standard. Because you tell me the last time they had a losing record. They have 0-3 was the last time that the Steelers had a losing record. That is unbelievable, and it's their only losing season this century. You can't find anybody more successful than that or more consistent than that. Tomlin should get some Coach of the Year recognition. He should have last year because he was down to his third-string QB, and Pittsburgh still went 8-8. They're the last undefeated team this year, and they look like a team that could challenge the Chiefs. Maybe. We shall see. But at this point, I think it's the Chiefs in a league of their own along with everybody else. But there are some very good teams in the AFC that can pose a threat. So definitely stay tuned for that. Hope everyone enjoys their football Sunday. Again, if you're out and about, please wear a mask and stay safe out there. And I'll catch you next time. Bye.